interrupting my texting. I'm an important person. I got texting to do. See, the congratulations.
The congratulatory text.
Oh, do I need to show the butt?
Woo! Yeah, there you go. Is this going to be awkward for you?
This is already awkward.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I don't. So right now, Aaron's taking the liberty to remove access to the cover. This is going to go up on the internet. I like how you have the seat right in your face.
Be my fist in your face here in a second. You keep putting me all over the internet.
Yeah, this is a smear campaign.
You ain't gotta dig too deep if you want to find some dirt on me.
Alright, so it might be hard to hear over Aaron's craziness, but right now we're getting the car ready to put the fuel pump in. As you can see, this is Aaron's girlfriend who brought over to help us. But today we're going to be installing the rallyroad.net fuel pump kit using the HFP, I believe, fuel pump. It's basically similar to the Aeromotive pump, but has a lifetime warranty on it. This thing basically comes with the sleeve, so it'll work with the factory fuel pump hanger. Comes with the appropriate strainer that changes the angle so it fits nice and snug inside there with the new style pump. Comes with some stainless steel hardware. Made in the USA. Comes with a little wiring harness adapter and a little hose to connect it to it. We've noticed some fuel pump issues with this car. Noticed that fuel delivery, some fuel volume problems. This thing's got about 217,000 miles on it right now. So hopefully this will be something to be advantageous to help the car out. So Aaron has taken the liberty of getting a good part of this done already. He's already used the shop vac to try and clean it out a little bit. You end up with what you can see, a pump. Once you remove the seat, you remove the cover, unplug the wiring. One's for the fuel pump, one's for the fuel level sensor. And this was just completely covered in dirt. So with this little bracket here, he's got the actual tool to remove that, which is pretty incredible. Oh, look at that. It's custom fab.
Homemade.
Custom fab.
It's for a 335, but I'll see if I can get it to work.
Yeah, right on.
In its previous life, it was a cam hold down tool for a GMV6.
Oh yeah, this ambiguous Fiero.
Yep. Well, the distance is right, the spacing is right. Look at that.
Like a charm. Definitely pretty large fuel hoses coming off of that thing and going back to it.
I mean, they got like 300 horsepower when dropped from an airplane.
Yeah. So the cool thing about this kit from rallyroad.net is that you're adapting. It's free? That you're adapting a. It's not free. I wish it was free. But that you're adapting a more common tuner pump essentially into the factory BMW case. So the cool thing, I mean, if you ever have problems, it's a lot easier to come across, say, like a Walbro or an Aeromotive pump than it is to try and come across the factory BMW setup. So this, I think, is going to be not only an improvement on power, but I also believe it's going to be and basically simplify some reliability problems too as well. So yeah, so now it's the trick of trying to get it out with the fuel sender. I did this on the M5, and that thing was so crazy complicated. Like the whole bottom piece and the whole top piece weren't even connected. It was just like a little rubber spring between the two of them. But there it is. Well, the fuel pump assembly, if you hold it there for a second there on its side there, Aaron. So this new assembly, you can see here how it's got with the factory BMW strainer, which this one actually looks like it's in pretty good shape, but you should always replace them anytime you replace a pump. But the strainer's kind of at an angle here, and like we were talking about the rallyroad.net kit, that actually runs an angled fuel inlet assembly to accommodate the larger style fuel pump. So this fuel pump just slides in, but it's a larger diameter here compared to like the Aeromotive and the Walbro and the other pumps of that size. So that's why that comes with that purple sleeve. That purple sleeve will basically make it fit inside the pump. So we'll get that pump slid into this this new setup, and we'll show you some after that. All right, so we got the fuel pump out of that little assembly. It was a little bit tricky. We had to, it took the two of us to kind of get it on. We had to pry 3 of these little tabs off very carefully, because we really have to reuse this plastic piece from the OEM fitment. And very carefully we pried that little thing off, and now we're putting the new setup on with the sleeve. So the sleeve is what basically gives it that ledge that it needs and the girth. There wasn't like a little tab like this.
He said girth.
There wasn't a tab like this, was there, Aaron, on the slate on the new sleeve?
I don't believe so.
Like a little locator tab?
But you're talking to the wrong essay.
I don't think I saw one either.
I would say
Doesn't act like one, huh? All right. The only reason I was wondering about clocking this with the step, but that'll be pretty easy, I think. It looks like it rotates.
So it goes like this, so we should probably clock it to where it's like that. No, like that.
I like it.
Because that puts the outlet straight on.
Mm-hmm.
The wiring straight on.
So as you can see, the idea of this kit is that you reuse the factory, as much of the factory components as possible, which is nice. Because like I said, if you need to get a fuel pump, I think this is even such a common design on this fuel pump that you can buy equivalents to these, you know, pretty cheaply through an auto parts store if you were in a pinch. Say like in Indianola, Iowa, when your car breaks down on the rallycross course, which is where we'll be in like 3 weeks.
Not me.
Well, me, maybe like 5 weeks.
If you pay me.
In October, in case you watch this video 3 years later when it finally ever surfaces.
All right, wiring.
I don't think it'll be that bad. Oh yeah, we do need to do the wiring. So basically we're going to be connecting these two together to these little two together here. I think it'll be simple. So the only thing I see that's going to be a little bit tricky is see how that's a little bit smaller there. But I think what we do, and I think you're in agreement, is that we'll just snip here and then just made it so that this is the new plug.
Aaron is in agreement.
Aaron. All right. So right now we're cutting the factory stuff to graft in the aftermarket stuff. So basically what we're going to run are these fancy little connectors here, and if I zoom up on it you can kind of see it. It's got it's made for a larger diameter, or a larger I guess a smaller gauge wire on the one side, so a larger wire, and a higher gauge wire on the inside, so a smaller wire. So that's what we're going to use. One of the things here that Aaron's doing, I think it's good to notice, is that he's offset the wires. And so the biggest reason you want to offset the wires is so that if you ever have any kind of, if there's any potential, you know, for arcing, you want to try and get the parts that are going to be cut away, or the broken parts, you know, away from each other, so that you can alleviate the potential for them to arc to each other. And in a fuel tank, arcy would be no goodie. Are you offsetting both sides? Did you give us some length on our ground one? I don't even know which one's the ground one. I'm just assuming that's the brown one.
That would make sense in most wiring applications.
All right, so we'll crimp these. Let's not use these ones.
Or are those not the fancy ones?
These are the fancy ones. There you go. So see if you can see that he's using the, oh, not that side. Is it small enough that maybe we should use the small one?
Yeah, I'm thinking we should use
I have this other ones too that go even smaller, so we can see if that white side will fit on these, you know what I'm saying, before we crimp it. You might just need to use just a normal straight fitting on it, or a straight electrical connector.
Why can't I get in the hole?
You don't have any kids, do you?
No.
Well, maybe that's a good thing. I know it's a good thing for society that you don't have any kids.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Mm-hmm. Is that going to be too small on that side too? I mean, it's super small.
So, yeah.
I think they use that for like
yeah, it's too small.
really tiny stuff. So it looks like we're going with just a regular one. Boom. No fancy ones needed today. Save that for the next time my fan stops working on the WRX at the track and is trying to melt itself down. So far, all of your lame jokes have worn down 20% of this battery. How does that make you feel?
They must be pretty good. If they're killing a GoPro battery, never mind.
They must be lit, huh?
Suck.
Yeah, that is the one thing. You have to have multiple batteries on tap. You made it sound like GoPro paid for this advertisement, this poor advertising.
No, GoPro's not paying for this.
How about O'Neill? Is O'Neill paying for this?
If GoPro wants to pay for this, they can replace my third or fourth GoPro Hero 3 that I'm on.
Well, it's just because you're always laying your motorcycle down on its side and wrecking into things.
Hey. I do what you gotta do.
That's all about those fast lap times. For the record, I made that up in case anybody is really concerned that this guy doesn't know how to ride a tricycle.
I got train wheels, it's all good.
All right, so these are heat shrinkable ends on them. So we'll take a brief pause once he gets this thing all connected together to shrink some heats, just in case it catches on fire. All right, so we're wiring these things, or shrinking these things here. As you can see, we got red to red and black to brown. Don't know if that makes sense or not, but we'll go with it. We kind of have the pump in its pseudo orientation, so we're kind of getting a nice little bend on it. As you can see, we didn't make these things super long, so we don't have this wiring kind of getting hung up on anything. We do have a fire extinguisher behind me, just in case.
Safety first, children.
Safety first, and I'm not making this up. I was just talking about how I saw a video a couple years ago about how a guy ended up burning down his whole apartment complex working on an old LT1 Camaro. So being that we've got, you know, probably 10 junkyard cars here that to the tune of about $300 value, we figured $100 in fire extinguishers was a good idea. Boom, just like that.
Just like that,
Just so we weren't making it up, there she is, that fire extinguisher. And I don't know if I even need to say this, but make sure you get a fire extinguisher that will actually put out flammable chemicals and not just like organic materials like wood and such. So we're gonna put this thing back together with this little rubber isolators, and we'll show you guys the final product here. The pressure's back on, Aaron.
Oh boy, I'm getting nervous. Oh, pee's coming out.
So like an excited Jack Russell Terrier, he's got this thing on there. We didn't have to use any lubricant, but I think it's worth mentioning, I've seen this before in my line of business, where people will use like a petroleum-based lubricant like WD-40 or KY or whatever your at-home or an industrial application use may be. But the bad thing about doing stuff like that is those things pretty much never evaporate. So it can happen, and it's probably not likely in a situation like this because it's not going to be getting really tugged on. What can happen is that it'll slide off. It could slide off through vibration. So what I use, I know, right? It's supposed to be the anti-vibration, right?
Slide off.
So what I used before, and one of the things that we were talking about just now about what to use would be a little hairspray. So the kind of thing that's kind of cool about hairspray is it's got a little bit of a lubricity, a little bit of slickness, but as it dries, it's really tacky. I've used them on like mountain bike grips before, trying to get mountain bike grips on, trying to get mountain bike grips off.
If you own a 335, then you use it for intercooler pipes,
Yep.
and they still blow off.
Well, yeah, that's not the only thing it blows off of in a 335. But yeah, so we should have this thing back together, but I thought
you were making a joke because I blew a motor.
Yeah. He's with us.
Now, children, when you install this and you use your eye for measurement, you're like, yeah, it's an 1/8 inch too long, and then you cut off an 1/8 inch, and then you actually put it together, it's not an 1/8 inch too long. So don't cut the hose. The hose is the right length. Why is his truck cooler than mine?
It's because our neighbors are cooler than us.
That's all right.
I don't know. I mean,
douchebags drive Raptors.
Yeah, that's coming from base model Bob over here. You kind of sound like a guy who would own a 335 and talk shit about M3s. Does that sound about right?
They're slow. I don't know what to say, man.
But yeah, that is a good point. So don't get too carried away cutting the hose. Definitely test fit it. It should be easy enough to come off of the fuel pump side. So if you want to mount it to the actual the barb side here,
mount it.
if you want to mount it on the barb side, then you can you should be able to slide this on and off if need be for retest fit. So right now you got this thing going back together. You can see that we've got the little little rubber isolators coming back in, an idea, the little rubber isolators are gonna actually be part of what the sound deadening, I don't know, so you don't hear the pump in these things all the time. So you can tell he's got the most accurate precision with our made in China screwdriver, which I actually think is out of one of my cars, oddly enough. So look at that, fuel level sending unit. That's why this is kind of a tricky unit. That's one of the reasons why I think it's advantageous to try to want to keep the stock fuel assembly. The fuel assembly's got so much going on to it, and in some of the other later years they have like a little jet pipe that runs over to it to get the fuel from one side to the other.
Jet pipe, is that what it is? A jet
yeah, I
pipe?
think that's what they call it. So let's look at our offset.
A Venturi-based crossover system.
There we go. That's what vet pipe stands for. I think this is actually, probably see it over here. That's what I think this little thing goes to, isn't it?
I think that's your drain duct.
Is it?
No, actually that's just a guide, I think.
Doesn't you see the bottom of your fingers?
Yeah, I think that's just
oh,
a guide.
okay. Oh, that's cool.
So you get in straight.
Get it in
remember,
straight.
Kids, if you're not straight, well, you're right by my book, but
yeah, this is a touch and go politically correct channel now. So we do have this extra clamp here. I don't know what it's for. Do we see any reason why we need this clamp? From what I remember is that they're saying you needed the clamp to hold this into this assembly.
no.
But I don't see that being a problem at all,
That
right?
ain't going anywhere. It's
Exactly.
not even moving.
So these things, and maybe if we would have broke it, which we didn't because we're pros.
That's probably why.
Yeah.
If you broke it, you put it right around here.
Yep, so you've got clips here on this side that hold it to keep it from coming up, and you've actually got, it's really hard to see, but clips on the bottom side that keeps it from going down. And that's, I mean, obviously one of the benefits of running this little fuel pump setup versus the stock one. So now we're putting this little guy on. We observed that this tang right here was in the direction of our little
Of the downhill.
of our little filter pickup. Do we need a little hairspray on that thing?
You might.
Yeah, because now you're trying to push it. I bet it's like on and then on forever. Uh-oh. Turn that around. You knocked this little filter screen is supposed to go in here. I don't know how important it is. Maybe that could be, I don't think that's why it's not going on.
No.
Kind of hard to hold on to now that it's in that little, maybe something to do before you mount this thing into the little rubber isolators. There it is. So you can see from here, that little guy, this little guy here, we got our wiring. See how we kind of have it offset, so it kind of reduces the chance for sparking. We do have our factory fuel level sending unit, and that runs up into the top of it. We've got our connection pipe here. We've got the return, which puts it out somewhere down, like I think right there. We've got it mounted in the little rubber isolators. We've got our little filter strainer going at the same angle that the old one came off of. And I think this little Johnny's ready to go back in. What do you think there, Ron?
I just want to see where the return goes. I don't know.
I think it goes out of here, like right there, look.
Oh, I think you're right.
Mm-hmm.
We're ready. I want to hit the inside of that with a Q-tip, further cleaning.
Sounds good. Right on.
Now, children, it is incredibly important that you get this mounted in the correct orientation. Ask me how I know. A certain retard did this on a 335 and did not get it in the right rotation, and this number one retard then had problems where he got down to 1/8 of a tank and the car would run out of gas, even though it said it had 60 miles to empty.
Yeah, fortunately I got really lucky with the M5 and that wasn't the problem. What I was more worried about on my M5, and maybe that was actually the problem that you actually had, it was that I was worried about my fuel level sender actually getting hung up on the bellows inside the tank. So
what happens when they're at the wrong orientation, at least in the 335, and this one looked the same way, is it actually moves the pickup up. So it's not hitting the bottom of the tank, so you're not getting all the fuel.
This is another reason why it was important to note the orientation of the little filter sock before you, so when you put it back together, it was going at the right angle.
It's got a guide rod there, but they're not, as I screwed up on the 335, so they're not always the best. Am I talking about 335 too much?
Nah, we're in a 325. I mean, at least you're not talking about your
only 10 apart,
your
right?
Chevy, your Chevy.
I don't have a Chevy. Don't call me gay.
Oh, I guess I was just trying to think of something that was like more opposite of a BMW than a BMW. Now, if I had an M3 and you're talking about your 335 a lot,
then I'd just be telling you how slow you are.
Maybe.
You have to give these some downward pressure in order to get them started. I think I got this one started. Feels right.
Man, I'm getting a good buzz going on. How about you?
No, actually, I can't drink.
No.
I think I have to go to work.
I'm talking about the from the fumes of the gasoline inside the cab.
Oh, I thought you were talking from...
That's I guess that's the natural high you're used to, huh?
It's about my my normal. I figure if you sit right at about the drunk level all the time.
All right, before I let Aaron clip these little clips in there too, we're gonna put a little dielectric grease inside of our electrical connectors. When I like to do that, I mean, European cars aren't necessarily known for their electrical connector supremacy. You know, I mean, fortunately for us, we're not in an English car, and we're not worried about trying to keep the smoke inside the wiring. However, I don't know if you've looked around or looked at E36s much, but they're not. I mean, they're known for problems.
And this one sees its duty of dirt.
Yep. And so what the dielectric grease will do for any electrical connectors, I use it on anytime I take something apart. I always put it back together with it. Is it acts like a little mini weather pack seal. That little silicone grease inside there will it's totally no issues with connectivity, totally conductive, no problem. But it'll obviously keep moisture out, and in addition to it'll actually keep some dirt out of it too.
Now you don't need to worry about that on 335s because they don't run long enough to build up any problems. You tear them apart once every 10,000 miles.
So I mean, just in to highlight what Aaron's talking about. This motor, it seems like we took out the factory fuel pump. We got about 217,000 miles on it. And the last couple hundred have definitely been some brutal rallycross beat downs on it. So how many miles and what's the year of your 335 there, Aaron?
Fuck you. It is a 2013, an N54 still, because it's a 335 IS. And it has 51,000 miles. It's got a cracked piston. I put a new high pressure fuel pump, spark plugs 3 times, all 6 coils, then all 6 coils the aftermarket coils, a water pump, intercooler piping God only knows how many times, a charge pipe, and probably something else that I forgot.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's what it takes to be faster than an M3.
Ain't that the truth?
But yeah, so I mean, that is one of the nice things about E36s, the chassis and the engines and stuff. And Aaron and I have talked about it. You know, Aaron's thinking about, he's definitely talking about doing a more reliable track build. And the 336s definitely fit the bill. There's motor swap options for everything. There's a bunch of BMW factory motors that you can put in here, and some require more work, say like the E46 M3, the S54, but some are definitely direct bolt-ins like the S52 out of the E36s already. So,
or the LS1.
Yeah, he's definitely thinking of an LS1 setup. Vorslag makes kits for those things, and Garagistic makes parts for the swaps, like the headers and all that fun stuff to make it work in one of these cars. And I can guarantee you that you mix a little BMW magic that these cars have between handling and brakes, you mix that with just pure unadulterated raw power that an LS V8 can have, I bet these things are a riot. So, uh-oh, he's trying to beat me to it. So we got it all in there.
Shit, dude, look at all that dirt.
I know. Poor little thing. So it's funny, I don't think that maybe people don't necessarily think about it, but the fuel pump is that, we're looking on the outside of the car right there, you know, and so this little cover and this little gasket and stuff, it's good to make sure that you maintain the integrity of that little seal a little bit, because that's what's basically separating the inside of the car and the outside of the car. So pretty funny. I mean, just something to think about. So now I'm going to put this dielectric grease in here on my electrical connectors. And basically, like I said, that's going to provide good, I mean, as good electrical continuity as the regular, as without it. But when you start adding inclement, you know, conditions, or even just regular normal driving conditions, you can get the, that'll help add to the reliability of this. I mean, this whole fuel pump install is supposed to be making this whole setup, this whole car more reliable. You know what I haven't seen in here that I've noticed in my WRX?
Flat brimmed hat.
Where do you put your vape juice in these things?
Or your flat brimmed hat.
Good thing we had this little thing for all the 4 screws, huh?
I thought there were gonna be a few more. That's my bad.
Hey, that's all right. We didn't lose them. Just like we're talking about the integrity. This is what's gonna be making this a beautiful, calming experience.
Calming?
Yeah.
You really just call this calming?
Well, I mean, when you're driving the car around, you want like fuel vapors.
Do you want to know what the funny part is? We got this can. So
we lost one of them.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, here's one. Here's a screw. There's extra screws in BMWs all ready for you.
They provide additional ones?
Yeah.
Dude, seriously, how did I lose one?
Here's one. Seriously, though.
That's not it.
Does it?
What?
Here it is.
Ah, good eyes. I was beginning to think maybe it was a 10mm.
Like somehow they were using those sockets to put this thing together. Should I not edit this at all and just string it all together? I mean, that's probably what will actually happen, actually. Like 3 minutes of actual notable audio and video. It turns into a 15-minute string on of 335 talk and some 325 talk.
You gotta do these in a rotating pattern, that way it torques somewhat evenly. And the exact torque is 2 clicks.
Oh! What was that one? There it is. Ka-chunk, ka-chunk. See, we can see him try and strip this thing. One more.
Battery's dead.
Oh, good thing.
I don't think it's going anywhere.
No. All right. Should I vacuum this out?
I would. I mean,
I'm already trying to looking at crappy seats to try and come up with some what do they call it? Weight reduction. All right. So try and prime the pump a couple of times, I guess.
No, I'll just start it.
Just raw dog it.
Yeah.
You ready?
Raw dogging some randoms.
There it is.
Dude, you're so gay. Old fuel pump. Properly disposed of.
I'm sure the environment likes it.
EPA, Obama.